Yay, it's May. We got some new VR games to talk about, let's get to it. Our review roundup will be pretty short as there was only one game last month that caught the attention of critics, and that was the Japanese action melee combat game Soul Covenant. Critic reviews were, to put it bluntly, pretty terrible. Road to VR rated the game with a bad 3 out of 10. Quote, Soul Covenant hoped to adapt the series' hallmark melee combat and colossal monsters into a VR native experience, but its obsessive adherence to repetitive wave-based missions and cumbersome narrative makes it feel more like it has 2 feet firmly planted in the flat-screen era, and not the immersive first-person anime-inspired game many were hoping for. End quote. I don't know how many people were hoping for that, given the track record of the developers. To make up for the shorter review roundup, we have a few games that released in late April and did not make it into last month's video. Here we go. Paradox of Hope was a Metro-inspired VR game made by a single guy, a one-man project that released on Steam in 2022. Nearly a year later, it was taken down due to a copyright claim. The developer states that the claim was unjustified, but he did not have the resources to fight it. Incidentally, this year we are getting an official VR Metro game, might have something to do with the takedown, who knows. As a result, he stopped working on the title naturally as he was no longer able to sell it and started working on this one. ConVRgence or ConVRgence is a stalker-inspired VR shooter. The city of Cherno-Kamensk was transformed into an exclusion zone by an explosion in a laboratory, with strange artifacts and monsters appearing, as it tends to happen all the time apparently. Wait a second. Cherno-Kamensk. Dude, your last game was taken down by a copyright claim and this one plays in a fictional town that you straight up joined from another video game? Interesting strategy. Let's see how long this one stays up. You play as a hunter, to delve into the zone on the search for valuable artifacts. The game mixes the general setting of Stalker with a single player extraction type game. The Steam page directly mentions Escape from Tarkov as an influence, so is single player Tarkov, and it's not $250, so that's a plus. The whole thing cries into the radius, right? Which also mixed Stalker with a single player extraction shooter, but in ConVRgence you have a canine companion. ConVRgence released into Steam Early Access on April 22nd. Keep in mind it's a one-man project and it's an early access, so it will be a while until it's feature complete. If Population 1 is the VR Fortnite, then Contractors Showdown is the VR Warzone. It's a 60-player battle royale with realistic weapon handling and yeah, I don't know what else to tell you. It's a Warzone in VR. Do we need another VR battle royale? No, but it can't hurt neither, and this one had a pretty decent start. There are absolutely no critics reviews yet, but players are enjoying it, giving the game a good 84% very positive on Steam. Most negative reviews are due to the fact that there is no solo queue, but you can go in alone, but you'll still play against squads. Showdown is made by the team behind Contractors, which was fairly popular but mainly carried by the modding community. This one seems to be a fair bit more successful, having, at least on Steam, already twice the peak player count of its predecessor, and also has already surpassed Population 1's peak player count. Steam numbers are not necessarily representative, but it's the only numbers we got, so we take them. Contractors Showdown released on April 25th on the Quest and on Steam. There's no word on a PSVR 2 release as of now. The last April release on our list is a kayaking game. Whitewater VR Extreme Kayaking Adventure does pretty much what it says on the tin. Compared to the other VR kayaking game, Kayak VR Mirage, this one is more focused on whitewater downriver action and less on a chill experience. But apart from that, it's pretty much the same thing. Also no multiplayer but online leaderboards. There are 5 rivers and completely different environments to master, and it also is a looker. Whitewater VR released on April 30th only on Steam. You remember Smalland? It was one of two tiny people big insect survival game that was left completely in the dust by the far more successful Grounded, but Smalland still persevered and hit its 1.0 release just a couple of months ago, and now we already get a VR spin-off. This is not just a port, it's a completely new but single player only story in the Smalland universe, so it's pretty much the same as Medieval Dynasty did in March, and as Medieval Dynasty this one also comes only to the Quest, and it shows. I did it with Medieval Dynasty and I gotta do it here. What a fucking waste, man. There would be a market for games like this in VR, but not looking like this. Alone watching the trailer hurts my eyes. It's obviously possible to make good looking games for the Quest, there are plenty of examples, but to make that work you have to tailor the game specifically to that hardware. You can't just port your flat game to VR and hope that it will just miraculously run on mobile hardware somehow. That's not going to happen without having to strip down the visuals until it looks like this. So hard pass for me, but if you're looking for a survival crafting game in VR and are not bothered by the visual downgrade, this might be one to check in on. Smalland Survive the Wilds VR releases on May 2nd only on the Quest.
Fleet Command online. Assessing all systems.
Speaking of VR spin-offs, this is one that I have not seen coming. Homeworld Vast Reaches is a VR real-time space strategy game, putting you right into the middle of the action. In this standalone story that plays somewhere between the events of Homeworld 1 and 2, you take on the role of Tiras Suban. Together with Karan Syed, the legendary hero of the Homeworld War, you face a new threat, the Radar, interstellar traders who desperately want to obtain your hyperspace core. I don't quite know how much demand there is for a VR strategy game, but at least it's something we don't see often. Let's see if it's more than a marketing ploy for the soon-to-be released Homeworld 3. The game is made by Farbridge, the developers of the immensely popular Walkabout Minigolf, so I would not write it off too soon. Homeworld Vast Reaches releases on the Quest on May 2nd. A Steam release is also planned, but without a confirmed date as of yet.
Trust your training. Here we go.
Hello? I'm in trouble. It's the magician. You've got to help me again.
Retropolis, where every soul feels like an insignificant cog in a colossal machine.
Introducing Philip Locke, the hard-boiled robo-detective, and Jenny Montage, the automated femme fatale that just can't keep herself out of trouble. The story of Retropolis 2 Never Say Goodbye is set a year after the events of the first game. Once again navigates the neon-lit streets of this gritty post-apocalypse and use your go-go gadget arms to solve the sinister mysteries of the robot Metropolis. At its core, Retropolis is a classical point-and-click adventure, just in VR. The sequel continues where the first game left off, but adds more puzzles and general gameplay elements, and is, with its about 4-hour playtime, also about 4 times as long as its predecessor. Retropolis 2 released in January on Steam, but failed to garner much attention. There are only 15 reviews on Steam, but they are at least 100% positive. The few critics reviews that are out there are also positive, mainly praising the game's high comfort and the strong story and writing. Let's see if the game gets its deserved recognition with a release on other platforms. A Quest version of Retropolis 2 is scheduled for May 16th and a PSVR 2 version for May 24th.
Well, that's not how I imagined work at Sky Chase. I wanted to traverse the city's rooftops. Fly like a bird.
Stride Fates is a campaign sequel to the hit parkour game Stride by Joyway. In the dystopian city of Iron, you are... fuck that, I won't bother you with the story. During its early access phase, a story mode was always part of the plan for Stride, until it wasn't. According to developer Joyway, the scope of the mode just got bigger and bigger, so that at some point they would no longer be able to implement it into the original game without major reworks. Thus, Stride Fates was born, much to the disappointment of Stride's early access supporters. The game released about 6 months ago on the Quest. I played it and reviewed it back then. I had fun with it. It's a splendid parkour game, a mediocre shooter, a terrible stealth game, and it has the most abysmal story and writing I've ever experienced in a video game. So a bit of a mixed bag there. I leave a link to my review in the description below. The game got several updates since then, including a major content patch to ConVRgence, which I have not tried yet. So hopefully without the limitations of the Quest hardware and with some patches under its hood, the PC and PlayStation versions will be stronger. Stride Fates comes to Steam and the PSVR 2 on May 16th.
Just another day of work.
Tank Arena, the Ultimate League, is a 4v4 competitive in-cockpit tank arena shooter. Sure, why not? The game uses the age-old holy trinity with a DPS tank, a healer tank and a tank. There will be 8 different tanks on release falling into these 3 categories, so compose your team carefully to gain an advantage over your opponent. Between matches you can decorate your room, show it off to other players and play minigames and stuff. Tank Arena Ultimate League releases only for the Quest on May 23rd. Just a quick mention here at the end, the new iteration of Codemasters' yearly Formula 1 games has a native VR mode, but only the PC version, not the PlayStation one, keep that in mind. F1 2024 releases on May 31st. So the last couple of months I was always like, pretty slow month, not much going on, and this month wasn't much of a difference to be honest. Contractors Showdown had some buzz behind it, but that's about it. But this year will be heavily backloaded. We got some very exciting games coming in 2024, some of them just recently announced. We get the sequel to Into the Radius, which I'm personally most hyped about. We get Metro Awakening by Vertigo. We get the new Alien game by Servius. We have a new Batman Arkham game coming, an official entry in a Rocksteady series, but made by Camouflage. We get Skydance's Behemoth, hopefully. Some pretty cool stuff, none of them with a set release date so far, except sometime this year. So if you don't want to miss them, what can I tell you? Just subscribe to the channel, that's all you gotta do, easy. See you in the next one.